President Biden said at CNN's town hall last week that the U.S. would come to Taiwan's defense if China invaded. Your spokesperson said there's no change in U.S. position. So I just want to clarify, has the U.S. committed directly to the Taiwanese government that it will come to Taiwan's defense if China invades?
There is no change in our policy. We've had a long-standing commitment that, by the way, then Senator Biden strongly supported when he was in the United States Senate, a long-standing commitment pursuant to the Taiwan Relations Act to make sure that Taiwan has the means to defend itself. And we stand by that. The president stood by that strongly. And we want to make sure that no one takes any unilateral action that would disrupt the status quo with regard to Taiwan. That hasn't changed.
You are the Secretary of State, and that was a very, very perfect Diplo speak. So I just wanted, for people who don't speak that language, can you clarify what that exactly means? Are you now saying that the United States would not come to Taiwan's defense if attacked? Can you be specific, yes or no?
Dana, again, what I can tell you is that we remain committed, resolutely committed to our responsibilities under the Taiwan Relations Act, including making sure that Taiwan has the ability to defend itself from any aggression.
Okay, just one more follow on that. The president said specifically that the U.S. would. That's not what you're saying, correct?
The president has, for a long time, including when he was a senator, voting for the Taiwan Relations Act, made clear that we will do everything necessary to make sure that Taiwan has the means to defend itself.
Okay, let's talk about Iran. The G20 is also addressing the threat of Iranian nuclear weapons this week ahead of renewed negotiations about the nuclear deal in Vienna. So is the U.S. prepared to increase pressure on Iran to get them back to the table? And if so, what does that pressure look like?
Well, two things. First, President Biden got together here in Rome with his German, his French, and his British counterparts. We are absolutely in lockstep together on how we're approaching the challenge of getting Iran back into compliance with the nuclear agreement. And that's new because we'd actually been at odds in recent years over that when the United States pulled out of the agreement.
So what is that? What is that lockstep? What does it look like?
And working on this together. So two things. We continue to believe that diplomacy is the best way to deal with the challenges, the threat posed by Iran's nuclear program, and particularly, unfortunately, the steps it's taken since we pulled out and in recent months to make that program increasingly dangerous. There's still a window through which Iran can come back to the talks, and we can come back to mutual compliance with the agreement, and that would be the best result. But it really depends on whether Iran is serious about doing that. All of our countries working, by the way, with Russia and China believe strongly that that would be the best path forward. But we do not yet know whether Iran is willing to come back and to engage in a meaningful way and get back into compliance. If it isn't, if it won't, then we are looking together at all of the options necessary to deal with this problem.
I also want to ask about Afghanistan. I want you to listen, or our viewers to listen to what you said 2 months ago about Americans still in Afghanistan.
We believe there are still a small number of Americans, under 200 and likely closer to 100, who remain in Afghanistan and want to leave.
So we now believe that there are still close to 200 Americans trying to get out of Afghanistan, even after you evacuated more than 200 already. So is it acceptable to you that so many Americans are still 2 months later trying to get out of Afghanistan?
Dana, let's be very clear about this because I think there's a tremendous amount of confusion about this issue that's built up recent months. And give me just 1 second and I'll try and explain it. First, going back to March of this year, well before the president made his decision, well before Afghanistan imploded, the government and the military imploded, we started sending messages to those who had American passports in Afghanistan, 19 between March and July, urging them to leave the country. By the time the government did implode in August, there were still about 6,000 left. And there's a good reason for that. These are people whose entire lives were in Afghanistan. Their families were there. Their extended families were there. That's what they knew. And so it's an incredibly wrenching decision to leave. So about 6,000 left at that point. During the evacuation, the extraordinary evacuation, in which we got about 125,000 people out of Afghanistan, we got virtually all of the 6,000 who remained out. There were still several hundred who had told us at that point that they wanted to get out, who were not able to get out by the 31st. And what we said was, there's no deadline to this effort. We will continue to get them out. Since August 31st, as of today, we've gotten out, of the Americans left who said that they wanted to leave, about 340. But what's happened since is this. More people have come forward in two ways. There were some small number of Americans in Afghanistan who didn't want to leave, who've now seen that we've successfully been able to get some of the few remaining Americans out, who've now come forward and said, we do want to leave. And there are a couple of hundred of those who are ready to leave, and we will work to get them out. Similarly, since August 31st, other people have come forward who had not previously identified themselves as having an American passport. They've now come forward to say that they do. We verified that, and if they say they want to come out, we will bring them out as well. But we've demonstrated exactly what we said in August, which is even as we worked to get as many people out as we could before we left the airport, we were convinced that we would be able to continue to do that, and we've done that.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken, thank you so much for clarifying that, and thank you for your time.